"You don't have authorization," the young banker said, without looking up. His voice was flat, polite, final. I stood there in my good shoes, the navy ones I'd worn to Robert's funeral, gripping the brass key like it could explain everything. "Check again," I said. "Box 314. I've had it since '92. He tapped at the screen, sighed. "Only one name on file." "No," I whispered, leaning in. "Check the midnight addendum. Look for Etta Mae Carter." His fingers froze. Outside, a leaf slapped against the glass doors. Windy October, the kind that makes your bones remember things you'd rather forget. The banker swallowed and hit a different set of keys. I watched the color drain from his face. "Please wait here," he muttered, disappearing through a side door. My palms were sweating. The lobby smelled like Lysol and pennies, sharp and metallic. On the chair beside me, my old leather purse sagged open, revealing the yellow envelope I'd brought, just in case. The manager came out 5 minutes later. "Mrs. Carter," she said carefully, "would you follow me?" The vault door was taller than I remembered, heavier, like it might never open again. She turned the wheel. It groaned. Inside, the little drawer waited. Box 314. I slid the key in. My hand trembled. The box opened with a soft click. There, nestled in the velvet, was the object I had come for. But it wasn't alone. Lying beside the red ribbon-tied envelope was a photograph I had never seen before. And in the corner of that photo, blurry but unmistakable, was my late husband, taken last month. The photo was glossy, new. It still smelled faintly of chemicals, like it had just come out of a 1-hour developer. Robert stood in a park, somewhere green, too green for October. Next to him, a woman no older than 30, holding his arm like she belonged there, and her eyes, those eyes, pale gray, sharp as cracked ice. She had my eyes. The manager cleared her throat. "You'll want to take those with you," she said softly. "I'll note the visit. No one else has been inside that box since the last recorded entry, 1994. I nodded, tucking the envelope and photo into my purse. My hands felt too large, too slow. Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves scraped across the pavement like dry bones. I got into my car and drove without thinking, taking the old route home, the one with the cracked sidewalk and the church on the corner that still rang its bell every Sunday. At a red light, I pulled the photo out again. My name was on the back. Not written. Carved. Like someone had taken a knife to the paper. Etta Mae Carter. The letters were deep, ragged, uneven. I ran a finger across them and felt the paper give under my touch. Back home, I didn't take off my coat. I just set the kettle to boil and sat at the kitchen table, the photo face down, the envelope beside it. The red ribbon untied easily. My hands remembered the knot. Inside was a single sheet of paper, yellowed slightly, but clean. The handwriting was Robert's, a will amendment, dated the night he'd died. And at the bottom, my signature, not a copy, ink, mine. But I had never seen that paper before. I didn't have time to question it. The landline rang. Blocked call. I stared at it until the machine picked up. Then, a voice. A single word. Midnight. I hadn't touched Robert's old lockbox in years. It had lived in the shed, under the floorboard, under the ragged green tarp that still smelled like gasoline and regret. But I knew it would be there. I always knew. The metal was cold as I carried it inside. My knees didn't like stairs anymore, but they still worked if I asked nicely. I opened it at the kitchen table. 3 things. A folded church bulletin from 1993, yellowed at the edges. A small brass key labeled Back Gate, and a cassette tape. It was in a clear plastic case. Someone had written on the label in blue pen, "For EM only." My hands shook as I fished the old tape player from the drawer near the stove. The battery door was cracked. I had to press it shut with a rubber band. I pressed play. And there it was, Robert's voice. "Etta Mae, if you're hearing this, something's gone wrong." He sounded older than I remembered, slower, like he was looking over his shoulder while he talked. "I didn't want this for you, but they know now, about the girl, about what I did." I pressed my hand to my chest. "Her name is Michaela. She's ours, Etta. Yours and mine, though you never met her. You weren't supposed to. It was safer." My mouth went dry. "They'll come for the documents, but you need to find the black binder. It's behind the freezer in the..." The tape stopped. I stared at it. Rewound. Nothing. Only static. I stood up slowly, heart pounding, and opened the freezer door. Frost puffed out in a tired breath, and behind the bags of peas and a wrapped-up ham, something black glinted between the coils and the wall. Before I could reach for it, the lights went out. Everything dark. The blackout wasn't a flicker, it held, just the sound of the wind outside and my own shallow breath inside. I lit a match with stiff fingers and found the hurricane candle we'd kept under the sink since the Y2K nonsense. I hadn't touched it in over 20 years, but that wick still took flame like it had been waiting. The kitchen looked different in candlelight. Smaller. Closer. The kind of dark that made you feel watched. I grabbed a dish towel, wrapped it around my hand, and pulled the freezer out with a grunt. My shoulder popped. The hum was gone, but the frost hadn't melted yet. There it was. Black, thick, rubber-banded shut. The binder. I sat down at the table again and opened it, careful not to tear the pages. Most were dry and crisp. Too crisp for something hidden near coils. Inside, financial statements from a credit union I'd never heard of. Transactions, withdrawal slips, one notarized letter from 1981 with Robert's signature, and another from 2023. My breath caught. There was a photo, too, a Polaroid, faded but clear enough. A baby girl, wrinkled, red-faced, swaddled in yellow. Michaela, March 1979, written on the back. My hand began to tremble as I turned the last page. A life insurance policy. Robert listed as insured, but not deceased, just presumed. And the beneficiary, Michaela Carter. No middle name, no address, just a note. To be contacted through Safe Deposit Box 3114 if event confirmed. Confirmed. Like this was a protocol. Like his death had rules. Then came the knock. Not at the front door. At the back. 3 soft knocks. Deliberate. The gate. The key. I rose slowly. Candle in one hand, brass key in the other. Then a voice. Soft. Female. "Mama?" The back porch was a tunnel of wind and shadow. I opened the door slow, expecting, what, a ghost? A trick? But there she was. Her coat was thin, her hair wind-blown. She looked 35, maybe 40, eyes like riverstone, gray and steady. She didn't smile. "Michaela," she said. I didn't speak. Couldn't. "I was told to come if the box was opened. He said you'd know what that meant." She shifted from foot to foot, like she'd rehearsed this moment and still wasn't sure she had the lines right. "Robert wrote me. Not often, just birthdays, updates. But 3 months ago, he said if anything happened, to find you." My knees gave a little. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in silence while the kettle whined. I set 2 chipped mugs on the table, mismatched like us. Michaela sipped her tea without sugar. "You opened the binder?" I nodded. "He left more than that." Her eyes softened. "Then you know why they're watching." I stiffened. "Who?" She didn't answer right away. 2 weeks ago, someone came into my apartment. Nothing taken, but my file drawer was cracked open. The one with his letters. I remembered the envelope in the vault. How fresh the photo had looked. "Do you have anything from him? Proof?" She nodded slowly. "Only one thing. A voicemail. From July. He was scared." I leaned in. "Do you still have it?" She unzipped her coat and pulled out a flip phone. It was scorched, edges blackened, screen cracked, but she cradled it like something holy, and when she flipped it open, the voicemail icon blinked red. The phone's speaker was scratchy, but Robert's voice was unmistakable. "Mickey, if you're hearing this, I've already missed the check-in. That means they're close." His breathing was heavy, as if he were walking fast, maybe running. "Don't go to Etta yet. Not until the clause is triggered. Not until midnight. And whatever you do, don't trust any Carter boy." I blinked. Box 314 was a decoy. The money in there, it's bait. The real account's still safe. But they'll come looking for the binder. It has the routing codes. If they get it... A sharp sound interrupted him, like the phone dropped. Footsteps, a scuffle. Then, silence. The voicemail ended. I stared at Michaela. "What clause? What Carter boy?" She set the phone down. "I don't know, but I think it means your nephew's. Or one of your sons." I shook my head. "I don't have sons. Robert had brothers, didn't he?" I nodded slowly. "Thomas and Will. Will's boys still live nearby." She reached into her coat again and pulled out an old photo, creased and worn soft at the edges. "This woman raised me. Said Robert arranged it after the accident. She never told me her real name." I took one look and gasped. "Sister Helen. You knew her?" "She ran the church pantry with Robert. She vanished in '92. She raised me in Tallahassee under the name Ruth." I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about money. Robert had built a second life, one he kept hidden even from me. Suddenly, the kitchen lights flicked back on. The microwave blinked 12 on quack. The fridge hummed. Michaela stiffened. Across the street, through the thin lace curtain, a black car sat idling. No headlights. "Did you tell anyone you were coming here?" "No," she whispered. I stood, heart pounding. "We need to leave. Now." I hadn't packed a bag in years, but the hands remember. 3 sweaters, 2 pairs of slacks, underwear, socks, the pink nightgown with the satin collar. The one Robert said made me look like a Southern movie star. I stuffed them all into the overnight bag I'd last used for his hospital stays. Michaela stood frozen by the kitchen door. "I've run my whole life," she murmured. "I'm tired." I looked her dead in the eye. "Then stop calling it running. We're repositioning." She gave a tight nod and slipped the binder under her coat. I took the red envelope from the vault, tucked it inside Robert's hollowed-out Bible, a trick he'd taught me in '84, back when he still trusted the wrong people. The lights still hummed as we backed out of the driveway. The black car across the street didn't move. But a block later, at the corner near the pharmacy, Michaela stiffened. "There's another one." Same make, same model. No plates on the front. I turned sharp, 2 rights and a left, heart thudding. They wouldn't think to look at the old Carter farm. Not after Will disappeared in 2001. Not after the sheriff declared it condemned. The gravel crunched under us as we pulled up. The house was dark, windows punched out. But the barn, red paint faded, roof intact, still stood like it remembered being needed. We crept inside, flashlight slicing through dust, and stopped. A cot in the corner. Fresh blanket. A mug, half full, still faintly steaming. Michaela whispered, "Someone's here." A single footprint marked the dirt near the door. Pointed toward us. I reached into my coat, hand on the cold steel tucked in the lining. Then Michaela's voice, a breath in the silence. "We're not alone." The pistol was small, but solid. A gift from Robert the year after a copperhead spooked me by the shed. "Good for snakes," he'd said, "and men who act like 'em." I held it now with both hands, following Michaela's line of sight. The sound came again, above, the hayloft. "I'll go," Michaela whispered. "No," I said. "My barn, my ghosts." I stepped toward the ladder, knees stiff, flashlight tight in my grip. Every rung creaked like it was confessing something. At the top, dust curled in the beam, burlap feed sacks, rusted tools, nothing else. Wait. A boot, half hidden behind a stack of crates. Scuffed. Big. I inched forward. There, slumped against the far wall, was a man. Mid-50s maybe, beard graying, his forehead split and crusted with blood, still breathing, barely. I crouched beside him, keeping the gun trained. Around his neck hung a leather lanyard. I squinted in the dim light. Alvin Grover, private investigator. I felt a jolt in my chest. I called down softly, "Mickey, bring the lantern." She came quick, holding it up like a holy thing. I reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded paper, crumpled at the edges. The name on the outside. To be delivered to E.M. Michaela opened it slowly. Her breath caught. "It's Robert," she said, and she read aloud. "He knows what happened to Will." Alvin Grover blinked up at us like he wasn't sure if we were real. "Water," he croaked. We found an old thermos in the tack room, dusty but sealed. He drank like a man crawling out of a desert. "What happened?" I asked. He winced, pressing a hand to his ribs. 2 men, big, waited for me outside my motel in Franklin, no plates on the car. He looked between us. "You EM?" I nodded. His eyes softened. "Robert paid me, for years, quietly, always cash. Wanted me to watch the Carter boys." "Why?" He leaned back against the barn wall. "He said Will found something. Tried to blow the whistle. Next thing, he's gone." I felt the breath catch in my throat. "Gone where?" "Millstone Recovery," Alvin said. Off-the-books facility, mental health officially, but Robert thought it was a holding pen for liabilities. I nearly dropped the lantern. Millstone had been shut down in '07, expose on the news. Unethical detainment practices, they called it. "I thought Will disappeared," Michaela said. Alvin shook his head. "He was disappeared, under a false name." He reached into his coat with shaking hands, pulled out a sealed envelope. "This too. He told me to give it to you, only you." I tore it open. Inside, a single photograph, dated April 2001. Will Carter, older, thinner, standing behind a chain-link fence. A sign overhead read, "Millstone Recovery Center, visitors by appointment only." I felt like I'd swallowed a brick. Robert's voice echoed in my head. "Don't trust any Carter boy. Except Will." Because Will had tried to tell the truth. Alvin looked at the barn window. His voice dropped. "If they find out I talked to you," he touched the gash on his temple, "they'll finish what they started." We couldn't stay. The cot in the barn wasn't safe anymore. The steam in the mug meant someone had been there hours before us, or minutes. I told Michaela to gather our things. Alvin needed help standing, but his grip was steadier now. As we helped him into the back seat, he reached down into his boot and pulled out something small, wrapped in electrical tape. A flash drive. "Robert said only you could unlock it," he muttered. I didn't ask how he knew. We drove east, past the county line, past where the GPS map turned to blank beige. I turned off at the old gravel road that once led to St. Elmo's Church. Torn down in '98 after the roof collapsed, but the basement remained. Hidden. Forgotten. Robert had kept youth records there, pantry logs, and something else he never let anyone touch. The last choir, he used to call it. We found the side stairwell sealed behind overgrown vines. Still locked, still waiting. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and old wood. The pews had rotted, but the file cabinets hadn't. Michaela set the battery pack on a folding chair, plugged in Alvin's dusty laptop. I inserted the flash drive. It whirred, then opened. Folders, labeled by year. Then, audio, private. I clicked the first. Robert's voice, fast, breathless. "The estate was built on false ledgers. The trust is a shell. The Midnight Project was never shut down." Another recording. "They promised to dissolve it. In '86, they lied." Another. "If Etta finds this, tell her I didn't know at first. I swear to God, I didn't know." The last file cut off mid-word. Then, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming down the stairs. Michaela looked at me, eyes wide. "That's not Alvin," she whispered. The footsteps were too even to be Alvin's. I shut the laptop, slipped the flash drive into my bra, and flicked the lantern off. Darkness swallowed the basement. We crouched behind a rotting pew, Michaela's breath fast against my shoulder. The door creaked. He came down slowly. Heavy boots, tall frame. Something glinted under his coat. When he stepped into a shaft of moonlight from the broken window, I saw his face. Ray Carter, Thomas's boy. Quiet at reunions, always in the corner, watching. He stopped near the overturned cabinet, scanned the room. "You should have left that box locked," he said calmly. His hand flicked. A lighter flared. Orange glow against the hymnals piled by the wall. "Ray!" I called out. He didn't flinch. He dropped the lighter. The flame caught fast. Smoke bloomed, thick and greasy. We dropped low. Coughing, crawling toward the back stairwell. The handle stuck. I shoved, kicked, no use. Michaela's eyes watered. "We're trapped!" Then, bang! The side door crashed open. Alvin stumbled in, face streaked with soot. "Go! Now!" We ran, coughing, eyes burning. Outside, the cold hit like a slap. We collapsed on the grass, watching the orange glow grow. The church let out a moan, then sagged in on itself, and just before the flames took the roof, I saw him, Ray, standing inside the doorway, watching us, not chasing, just watching. We drove without speaking, eyes burning, hands shaking. Alvin's ribs were likely cracked, but he didn't complain. Michaela rode shotgun, curled inward like someone afraid of waking up. I drove, knuckles white on the wheel. We pulled into the sundown motel sometime after 2 a.m. Rusted sign. Vacancy light half lit. No cameras. Perfect. We used fake names. Paid cash. 3 beds, 1 flickering lamp. Once inside, Alvin unwrapped his shirt. A deep purple bruise bloomed across his ribs. "I'll live," he muttered. "Worse from my ex." Michaela and I exchanged a look. He pulled the binder from his bag and flipped through. "Project Midnight wasn't just a fund," he said. "It was Cold War insurance, a black-budget slush pile, meant for emergencies, only no one stopped using it." I frowned. The Carter family was managing that? On paper, through the Midnight Trust, they thought they were funding scholarships, but it went to payoffs, surveillance, silence. "And Robert?" Michaela asked. "Found out in '93. Too late." I sat back, the motel sheet scratchy on my neck. "Binder's not enough," Alvin said. He told me there was a second packet, hidden, where family couldn't reach. I thought back. Tonight's Robert thrashed in bed, words half-spoken. "The key's with Helen," he mumbled once. "She still wears it like a rosary." My breath caught. Michaela sat up straight. "I have it," she said. She reached under her shirt and pulled out a small silver cross. Tarnished, plain. "Helen gave it to me when I turned 12, said it was for protection." She twisted it. It popped open. Inside, nestled like a secret, was a tiny brass key. The cross was lighter than it looked. Michaela laid it on the motel nightstand, like it might break. The tiny brass key clicked as it landed. No numbers, no tags, just years of wear. "Safe deposit," Alvin guessed. I shook my head. Too old, too worn, not commercial. A memory surfaced, vague but sharp. Helen at St. Jude's, lighting one candle, always the same one, then kneeling, not to pray, but to unlock a drawer beneath the altar. "She kept something there," I said. "A drawer, low, hidden." We drove east at dawn. St. Jude's hadn't held Mass since '96, but the structure still stood. Peeling paint, ivy strangling the bell tower. The doors groaned when we pushed them open. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and old incense. The altar was untouched. A single white candle melted flat, and there, just below it, a narrow drawer with a rusted lock. I slid the key in. Click. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were 6 documents. Yellowed, stamped, confidential, and a cassette, unlabeled except for one word. Testimony. I tucked them into my purse, heart pounding. "We need to," I started. "Wait," Michaela said. She stood by the pew, eyes locked on something. Ash. A soft pile of gray flakes, still warm. Cigarette. Fresh. Then, a sound. The rear door creaked open, and a shadow stretched slowly across the aisle. I pressed my finger to my lips, and we crouched behind the pew. The boots clicked on the tile floor. Steady, heavy, not Ray. Alvin leaned forward just enough to glance. He mouthed, "Dalton." My stomach sank. Sheriff Emmett Dalton, retired 10 years. But he'd always liked the feeling of keys on his belt and secrets in his pocket. He walked straight to the altar like he owned it, reached under the drawer, found nothing. His jaw tightened. He lit a cigarette, took a long drag, and looked out over the empty pews. "You're already too late," he said aloud. Then he turned and walked out the front door. We didn't move for 5 full minutes. Then Alvin exhaled. "That man doesn't visit chapels for prayer." We slipped out the vestry exit, keeping to the shadows. 20 minutes later, at a gas station outside Camden, I dug out the tape. "Testimony," it said. Alvin was hunched over a paper map on the hood. "I know someone. Lucinda Greer. Used to be a bulldog in the DA's office. Retired. Memphis. She owes me." "What kind of favor?" Michaela asked. "The kind that keeps a file from disappearing." The sun was up now, but it didn't feel like morning. I slid the cassette into the car's old player. A click. A hiss. Then Robert's voice. "This is my confession." Robert's voice filled the car like fog. At first it was about community aid, real causes, the food pantry, the scholarship fund. But in '88, Thomas changed everything. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Dalton brought in the state boys. The trust became a front. Surveillance, payoffs, detainments. He paused. "I tried to walk in '93. That's when they came after Etta." My breath caught. They knew about the miscarriage. They said it was my fault it happened, that they'd tell her I agreed. I didn't. God help me, I didn't. Michaela sat rigid beside me. "They threatened to erase me. Said if I spoke up, they'd bury me in paperwork, make me vanish without a sound." The last 30 seconds were coordinates. Read once, then repeated. Alvin scribbled them onto a napkin. "Mississippi," he muttered. "Rural, property held by TC Holdings." I knew those initials. Thomas Carter. "That's where we're going," I said. "No," Michaela said. "Not without a plan. This stinks like a trap." I reached into my purse. Pulled out the red-ribboned envelope, the one from box 314. "I think this is the only piece they never touched," I said. I held it out to them, unopened. He left it for me, and whatever's in here might be the reason we're still alive. The ribbon slipped loose in my hands, the red darker now with age. Inside, 1 page, not to me, to Michaela. I handed it to her, watching the way her fingers hesitated on the fold. She read it aloud. "Mickey, I wanted to give you more, but I didn't know how. I watched from too far for too long. If you're reading this, it means Etta found the truth. I trust her. I always did." Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat. "Thomas used the trust to make people disappear. Since 1985. I stayed in long enough to know where they'd hide the final file, but it started before me. You need to go to Cold Branch, the depot. That's where they moved you in '79. That's where it all started." I frowned. Cold Branch was just a smudge on the state map, barely a memory. Michaela reached inside the envelope again, pulled out a faded train ticket. "March 12, 1979, she whispered. "Departure, 4:06 a.m. A note scribbled in the corner. "Final untraceable transfer." Alvin stared at it. "Depot's private now. TC Holdings bought the land after the line shut down." I met Michaela's eyes. "That's where we go." She nodded. "Before the property, before we walk into a trap. Then Alvin's phone buzzed. One message, no ID. Too late, she's already boarded. The room went still. Michaela gripped the ticket tighter. Who boarded what? She whispered. Cold Branch crept up like a ghost town that forgot it was dead. The depot slouched at the tree line. Vines strangled the windows. The tracks rusted into the dirt, but the structure still stood. Inside, it smelled like paper rot and mold. One bench sat clean. Michaela moved toward it, drawn by something older than memory. She sat. Click. A low grind filled the air. Behind the ticket booth, a panel slid open. A staircase. We descended slow, flashlight flicking shadows. The air dropped 10 degrees. Cement walls, steel shelf, and a table. 3 boxes, each labeled. 1979. Subject. 1985. Subject W. Unmarked. Locked. Michaela opened the first. Inside, hospital forms, test results, DNA reports, and one name. Helen Booker, biological mother. She staggered back. She told me she was just a caretaker. Etta's chest ached. She was more than that. I turned to the second box. Will's photo. Shackled. Pale. Label. Non-compliant asset. Monitor level 2. My stomach rolled. The third box was heavier. Locked. I lifted it. Underneath, a pistol and a scrap of paper. If they reach here, the project is live. Then, a sound. Above us, gravel crunching. A car door slammed shut. We didn't breathe. The gravel shifted again, heavier now, closer. I pressed my back to the cement wall, pistol hidden inside my coat. Alvin found a rusted iron bar and wedged it across the stairwell door. The knob turned. Once. Twice. Then, silence. A full minute passed before the footsteps retreated. Still, we waited 10 more. When we finally moved, Michaela began gathering the documents. Alvin stared at the locked box. I can open it. He pulled a penknife from his boot and worked the latch. It popped with a snap. Inside, 3 things. A reel of old surveillance film, a cassette marked, "For TC only," and a sealed envelope. Alvin passed it to me. To the executor. I opened it, typed, clean, no date. Project Midnight will resume once identities are secured. Phase 2 initiates with Subject M, updated records enclosed. Transfer to Southeast District scheduled for 2025 under alias Maria Ellis Carter. Michaela's hand flew to her chest. That's me, she whispered, her name on a forged birth certificate, dated next year. Thomas hadn't tried to erase her. He meant to relaunch her. The past wasn't buried. It was being rebooted. Alvin's burner phone buzzed. One message. No sender. A video feed. Flickering. Low light. A woman, gray hair, thin frame, tied to a chair, face visible. Sister Helen. Alive. Timestamp. Today. Michaela trembled, fists clenched. She's alive. They're hurting her. I steadied her shoulders. The video showed Helen tied to a metal chair, eyes alert, jaw tight, still fighting. Alvin paused the frame. Look, he said, pointing to the wall behind her. Plaque, room 2A. My gut twisted. Cedar Pines, I said. Thomas funded it. Shut down 5 years ago after a wrongful death suit. No cameras, no press, Alvin added. Michaela's voice cracked. We have to go. I nodded, but my whole body screamed, trap. Still, the timestamp on the feed ticked forward. Helen was alive, for now. We drove fast, no headlights the last mile. Cedar Pines loomed out of the fog, 3 stories of brick rot and bad memory. The windows stared like hollow eyes. Inside, the air smelled like old bleach and thyme, peeling linoleum, silence thick as oil. We found room 2A on the 2nd floor, door ajar, chair centered in the room, restraints hanging loose, But no Helen, just a camcorder on a tripod, red light blinking, and one line scrawled on the wall in something like charcoal. You were 2 minutes late. The hairs on my neck stood up. Behind us, a hinge moaned. Another door creaked open. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 20 years. Put the gun down, Etta May. Thomas Carter stepped in like he owned the dust. Gray hair, stiff back, same pocket watch chain I remembered from every town meeting he ever hijacked. Beside him, Ray, face hard, baton in hand. Thomas smiled. You found the tape, I wondered. I kept the pistol raised. Where's Helen? He nodded toward the camcorder. She served her purpose. Michaela's face twisted. You mean she protected me while you built an empire off fear? Thomas sighed. Preservation isn't cruelty, it's containment. The world doesn't need every secret aired. Robert thought it did, I snapped. Robert was weak, Thomas said, flat. He knew, and he stayed quiet. For you. Alvin moved. Too fast. Ray swung the baton. It cracked against Alvin's side. He went down, gasping. Blood spread across the tile. I stepped forward, finger tightening on the trigger. Thomas didn't flinch. You won't shoot me, he said. You're still playing righteous. But it wasn't me who moved. It was Michaela. She stepped forward, holding the cassette. For TC only, she read. Thomas's eyes narrowed. She dropped it. And with one sharp stomp, crushed it under her heel. The plastic shattered. His face went pale. Outside, a siren wailed, distant but growing. Thomas turned toward the sound. What did you do? He hissed. But I was asking the same thing, because none of us had called the cops. The sirens were no longer distant. Thomas's calm cracked. Ray, hallway, now. Ray bolted like a dog unchained. I dropped beside Alvin. He was conscious. Barely. Finish it, he rasped. Michaela crouched by the camcorder. Her fingers found something underneath. A file folder. She opened it. Typed pages. Stamped Phase 3, Asset Reprogramming. Her name, Prototype 1. Her hands trembled. I stood. Gun aimed. You kept records, I said. But we kept memories. Thomas's mouth twisted. You don't understand the cost. He lunged. I fired. The shot echoed like judgment. He collapsed, clutching his shoulder. Outside, brakes screamed, doors slammed, boots thundered. Police filled the room. Hands! Someone yelled. An officer grabbed Michaela, then froze. Another stepped forward. A woman, late 30s, badge flashing, Deputy Ward. She looked Michaela over like someone searching for proof of a rumor. We've been looking for you, she said. What? Michaela whispered. Your file hit the DA's desk 3 hours ago. Full dump. Midnight Project. Birth records. Surveillance logs. My jaw dropped. We didn't send it. Michaela looked at me. Alvin groaned. And I asked the only question left. If none of us sent it, who did? The hospital reeked of bleach and questions. Alvin made it through surgery, stable but cuffed to the bed. Michaela sat beside me, her face a blend of grief and grit. Deputy Ward returned with a printout. The upload came through the whistleblower portal tied to the state attorney's secure line. That's internal, I said. Top clearance. Exactly, Michaela whispered. You think Robert? He's gone, I said. Then maybe Helen. Ward nodded. The forensic ping traced back to an old signal mask used once, by Millstone Recovery. My heart stuttered. She's still there. By dusk, we had a plan. Quiet entry, 2 trusted officers, no headlines. Millstone stood as it always had, soulless brick and forgotten stories. We slipped through the back, past rooms sealed with rusted wire, down a hallway that smelled like wet paper and time. Then we found it, a door marked Ward D. Locked, still sealed. The officer cut through. The room beyond was small, warm. A single lamp burned, and there, thin, eyes sharp behind age, sat Helen. Her hands folded in her lap, she looked up. "Took you long enough," she said. Then she opened her fingers, and inside her palm, Robert's ring. Helen's eyes glittered like someone who'd lived too many lives and counted none of them as wasted. "They locked me away as Eleanor Gray," she said. "Gave me sedatives, kept me quiet." Michaela knelt beside her. "Why didn't you run?" "I stayed, to leak what mattered. When the Carter Foundation tried to revive, I knew the time had come." She reached beneath the seat cushion, pulled out a folder, bound in red tape. "The original charter," she said. 1972, Midnight Project, signed and witnessed. I opened it, names I recognized, and some I didn't. Thomas Carter, Sheriff Dalton, even a former state senator. It wasn't about charity. It was population control, disguised as mental health care. Michaela trembled. Was I ever meant to be real? Helen's voice softened. "You weren't supposed to exist, but you do, and that breaks their system." We walked her out, careful, quiet, unseen. She clutched Robert's ring like a rosary. At the car, I turned to her. "We have enough now. Testimony, paper trail, witness." "But not protection," Helen said. "You need Lucinda Greer." Alvin had mentioned her once. Prosecutor, retired, dangerous in heels. I pulled out my phone, dialed the number. 1 ring, 2, then a voice, calm, smoky, patient. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. Lucinda Greer sipped black coffee like it was gospel. We met her at a diner just outside Hazelhurst. Red booths, pie cooler humming, no cameras. She didn't waste a second. "You've got a case," she said, flipping through Helen's folder. "But we'll need to bury it in light." She meant publicity. Fast, loud, unignorable. "Next fiscal quarter," she said. "That's when Carter's estate funds reactivate. We beat them to it, or the money gets washed." Michaela straightened. "What do you need from me?" "Statement, clear, unbroken. You name names, you name methods. You don't blink." I hesitated. "This paints a target," I said. Michaela met my eyes. "They already painted one. Now I mark them." Lucinda handed her a burner phone. "Record tonight, upload in the morning. I'll handle the press channels." "And if they come for us?" Alvin asked from the booth behind. "I've arranged a safe house, but once this breaks, someone will push back. Hard." Back at the motel, we cleared the table. Michaela sat facing the camera. Her voice shook only once. She said Thomas's name. Dalton's. She said her own. The real one. I watched it all through tears I didn't let fall. Then the burner phone rang. "Lucinda." "You've got 72 hours, she said. "After that, the legal door slams. If you want justice, run toward it now." We hit upload at 6:07 a.m. By 7 o'clock, Lucinda had it on 3 vetted outlets. By 9 o'clock, it was everywhere. Michaela's face, her voice, her truth. The motel phone rang, then my cell, then nothing but static. News vans parked on the gravel lot. Reporters knocked. We didn't answer. By noon, Alvin was gone. "Transferred," they said. "Under internal review." We knew what that meant. Helen, thankfully, was already in federal hands. Hidden. Safe. For now. Michaela stared out the window as strangers sent messages. Some kind, others vile. One came with no message at all, just an attachment. Box 3 and 4, Ledger, Final, PDF. I opened it. Columns of numbers, routing paths, grant siphons, dates that aligned with Thomas's biggest acquisitions. This was it. The missing piece. But something felt wrong. I clicked the document info. Created June 18, 2024. I frowned. This wasn't scanned yesterday. It's been ready for over a year. Michaela leaned in, scrolled down, stopped. In the fine print, Executor, M.E. Carter. My breath caught. M.E. My initials. My maiden name. Michaela stepped back. They thought it was you, she whispered. They planned all this. For you. I hadn't used my maiden name in decades, but somehow it had never stopped using me. Michaela sat on the motel bed, the ledger open across her lap. In the notes, she said, voice tight, they call it a fallback, a shadow executor, in case Thomas couldn't finish. I stared. It wasn't identity theft. It was identity placement. My name wasn't just on the periphery. It was the plan. Lucinda confirmed it by phone. They tied the next phase to a clean name, she said. Yours. You masked them. No, I said. They don't get to wear me like a glove. I called in the one favor I had left. Judge Rayner, from Robert's appeal, now a Supreme Court clerk. By dusk, we had a motion filed, emergency injunction to freeze Carter's estate. Lucinda sent word to the press, the legacy has a leak. Then the motel got quiet. Too quiet. We knew the comm was a trick. That night, an SUV parked across the lot. Lights off. Engine idling. I opened the drawer, took the pistol. Michaela stood beside me. No fear in her eyes now, only steel. A knock. Then a voice. Executor Carter, we have a problem. I opened the door slow. 2 men, clean cut, government teeth, private eyes. No badges. We're from Continuity Oversight, the taller one said. No such bureau. He handed me a red envelope. Inside, legal jargon dressed like mercy. Settlement for retroactive misclassification, it said. A bribe. Michaela grabbed it, tore it clean in 2. The men didn't blink. You can take the money, the shorter one said, or the memory. The system survives either way. I stepped outside, held up my phone, camera already rolling. Say that again, I told him. He froze. The taller one grabbed his arm. Let's go. They backed away. SUV peeled off. The stream hit 20,000 views before we reached the parking lot. An hour later, Rayner called. Injunction's in, he said. Estate's frozen. Feds are moving. I looked at Michaela. She slumped onto the curb, shaking, laughing. What now? She asked. I reached into my coat pocket, felt the weight of Robert's ring, the tiny brass key beside it. Now, I said, now we testify. The motel behind us faded into sunlight. We walked forward, towards something that finally felt real.